Before you change your life, you must first take command of the one thing that creates every result you've ever experienced, your mind. Let me ask you something powerful. Have you ever wondered why two people can face the same struggle, yet one arises and the other breaks? One person sees an obstacle and another sees an opportunity. It's not luck, it's not talent, it's mindset. Your mind is the control center of your entire reality. Every emotion, every decision, every habit, it all begins with what happens inside your head. Most people spend their whole lives trying to control everything around them, their job, their relationships, their circumstances, but they never learn to control what's within them. Here's the truth most people never hear. If you don't control your mind will control you. It will feed your fears, magnify your doubts, and keep you chained to your past. The moment you take command of your thoughts, you take command of your destiny. Because the quality of your life will always follow the quality of your thoughts. You think limitation, you live limitation. You think power, you live power. You think possibility, and suddenly life opens up in ways you never imagined. So today, I'm not just going to motivate you. I'm going to challenge you to take full control of the one thing that shapes everything, your mind. If you stay with me until the end of this speech, you'll learn 6 powerful keys that will show you exactly how to do that. How to silence the noise, master your emotions, and design the life you truly deserve. Because once you control your mind, you will control your life. Let's start with something real. Everything you see around you right now, every achievement, every invention, every empire, every relationship, it all started as a single thought. That's how powerful your mind is. The mind is the master. It's the architect of everything that exists in your life before anything becomes real in the physical world. It's born first in the invisible world of thought. You can't build a house without a blueprint. And you can't build a life without mastering the blueprint in your mind. Most people never realize this truth. They think life is happening to them, that circumstance is luck, or other people are in control. Here's the truth. Life is happening from them. Every experience is filtered through the meanings they attach to it. Two people can face the exact same storm. One sees destruction. The other sees a chance to rebuild stronger. The difference isn't the storm, it's the story. Their mind is telling them about it. Your thoughts are the seeds of your destiny. Every belief, every habit, every result you get, it all starts with a single repeated thought. And here's the thing. Mind doesn't care if what you tell it is true or false, positive or negative. It simply believes whatever you feed it and works relentlessly to make it real. If you tell yourself you're not enough, your mind will collect evidence to prove it. If you tell yourself you are powerful, capable, and destined for more, your mind will move mountains to make it true. The problem is most people let their thoughts run wild like an untrained animal. They wake up and instantly check their phone. Let social media dictate how they feel and carry the weight of yesterday's worries into today. They don't realize they're programming their own suffering. Your mind is like fertile soil. Whatever you plant, it grows. Plant doubt, you harvest hesitation. Plant faith, and you harvest strength. Plant fear, and you'll live in chains. Plant power, and you'll live in freedom. You have to become the conscious gardener of your mind. That means being aware of what's growing up there, the thoughts, the beliefs, the inner dialogue that shapes your identity. You can't change what you're not aware of. Awareness is the first step toward mastery. When you start noticing your thoughts, when you start observing instead of reacting, that's when the power shifts back to you, because now you're no longer being controlled by the mind. You're controlling it. I've seen people transform their lives completely by changing the way they think. I've seen individuals who were broken, depressed, or lost rise to levels they never imagined possible. Not because the world around them changed, because the world within them did. When you start directing your thoughts instead of letting them drift, your life begins to align with your true potential. You begin to notice opportunities that were always there. You were too blinded by doubt to see. Think about it. How many times have you stopped yourself from taking action because your mind whispered, "What if it doesn't work?" That single thought, left unchecked, kills more dreams than failure ever will. The mind can be your greatest ally or your worst enemy. It can build a future of fulfillment or a prison of fear. The moment you realize that you hold the remote control, everything changes. It's not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about training your mind to focus on what you can control. Instead of being paralyzed by what you can't, you decide that your thoughts will serve you, not sabotage you. You reclaim your power. You stop being a victim of emotion and start being a creator of meaning. That's where transformation begins, in the decision to no longer let your thoughts dictate your reality. Every great achiever knows this truth. They guard their mind like a sacred space. They don't entertain thoughts of failure, defeat, limitation. They replace them with thoughts of purpose, power, and progress. They understand that the mind doesn't just react, it creates. What you hold in your mind consistently with emotion and belief will eventually show up in your life. It's not magic, it's alignment. If you want to change your life, you don't start by fighting your circumstances. You start by mastering the conversation inside your head. You start by catching those moments when your mind says, "I can't," and replacing them with "I must." When you do that long enough, it stops being an affirmation and becomes an identity. Because the truth is, your life will never go beyond the limits of your mind. So today, I want you to make a decision. Decision to take control of what you think, to become aware of what you feed your mind, and to choose thoughts that pull you toward your highest self. Because when you master your mind, when you decide that your thoughts are no longer random, intentional, you become unstoppable. The quality of your life is the reflection of your mind. Change your thoughts and your life will follow. Focus, it sounds simple, but it's one of the most powerful forces in human existence. You focus on consistently, you feel. What you feel consistently, you become. Most people think their life is shaped by their circumstances, but in truth, it's shaped by what they choose to focus on every single day. Because focus is the doorway through which your mind directs its energy. Wherever your focus goes, your energy flows. If you spend your days focused on what's missing, you'll always feel lack. If you focus on what's wrong, you'll always feel broken. If you focus on what's possible, on what you can do, on what's within your control, you begin to reclaim your power. The mind doesn't know the difference between something real and something vividly imagined. It responds to what you consistently hold in your attention. So the question isn't whether you can focus. It's what you've been focusing on without realizing it. Most people live in reaction. They let the world decide what they think about the news, their job, their bills, other people's opinions, and then they wonder why they feel anxious, angry, or stuck. The truth is they've surrendered the steering wheel of their attention. Passengers in their own mind, but achievers, leaders, those who live fulfilled lives, they don't allow their focus to drift unconsciously. They direct it. They choose it. They decide what deserves their mental and emotional energy. Because here's the secret, focus magnifies everything. Focus is like a magnifying glass. Whatever you put it on gets bigger and more intense. You can use it to burn through fear and limitation, or you can use it to burn yourself with worry and doubt. The choice is always yours. Most people keep focusing on what they don't want, and then they're shocked when it keeps showing up in their life. You keep saying, "I don't want to fail. I don't want to be broke. I don't want to be alone." And your mind keeps hearing one thing: fail. Broke alone, the mind doesn't process the word don't. It only focuses on the subject. You've got to flip it. Start focusing on what you do want. I will grow. I will build wealth. I will attract love. I will become unstoppable, because what you focus on, you feel. What you feel, you act on, and what you act on, you become. The direction of your focus determines the direction of your destiny. And let me tell you, focus is a muscle. It doesn't grow by accident. It grows through discipline. Every time you choose to focus on your goals instead of your distractions, you're strengthening your ability to control your mind. Every time you shift your attention from fear to faith, from problems to possibilities, you're reprogramming your brain to serve you instead of sabotage you. The mind loves patterns. It will keep repeating whatever you reinforce. So, if you reinforce power, gratitude, and clarity, that's what you'll live more of. I've seen people transform their entire life by changing nothing except where they place their focus. I once met a man who told me he'd lost everything. His business, his marriage, his hope. He said he woke up every day thinking about what he'd lost, about how unfair life had been, and I told him, "You're not depressed because life is empty, you're depressed because your focus is empty." I asked him to shift his attention. Instead of focusing on what was gone, I told him to find one thing each day that was still good, still work, and still worth fighting for. Within months, his energy changed, his decisions changed, and his life started rebuilding itself. Not because the world suddenly got better, because his focus did. Your brain can only process so much at once. When you fill it with thoughts of gratitude, power, purpose, there's no room for fear and limitation. Focus is the filter of reality. It determines what you see and what you miss. You could be surrounded by opportunities and never notice them simply because you're focused on the wrong thing. You're always filtering. The key is to filter consciously. So, how do you take control of your focus? First, you decide what matters most. What's urgent, not what's loud, but what's truly important. Then, you condition your mind every day through questions, through rituals, through habits to look for those things. Ask yourself, what am I grateful for today? Can I do right now to move closer to my goals? What meaning can I give this challenge that will empower me instead of weaken me? The mind answers whatever question you give it. Ask better questions and you'll get better focus. Distractions come and they always do. Don't fight them, redirect them. You can't control every thought that enters your mind, but you can control which ones you feed. Let go of the ones that drain you, feed the ones that strengthen you, because the truth is, focus isn't about eliminating everything around you. It's about mastering what's within you, and when you learn to direct your focus, you become unstoppable. Because no matter what chaos surrounds you, you can always find your center. You can always find what's meaningful, what's worth your energy, what's worth your attention. That's the essence of mental power. The ability to stay locked on what moves you forward, even when everything around you tries to pull you back. When you master your focus, you master your future. Every one of us lives inside a story. That story shapes how we see the world, how we see others, and most importantly, how we see ourselves. It's not the events of our lives that define us. It's the meaning we attach to those events. The problem is most people never question the story they're telling themselves. They keep replaying the same narrative over and over. A story about what they can't do, why life is unfair, why they'll never be enough, and they don't even realize that story is running their entire life. You can't live an extraordinary life while holding on a story that limits you. Maybe your story says, "I always mess things up," or "I wasn't born with the right opportunities," or "people always leave me." Whatever it is becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because your mind wants to be consistent with the story you believe. If you see yourself as weak, you'll find reasons to stay small. If you see yourself as strong, you'll find reasons to rise. The story you tell yourself either builds your future or buries it. And here's the truth. At some point, that story might have served you. Maybe it protected you from pain, from rejection, from disappointment. What once protected you can now imprison you. The mind loves familiarity. It would rather live in a painful story it knows than an empowering one it doesn't understand yet. But freedom only begins when you challenge that story. You look it in the eye and say, "This is not who I am anymore." I've seen people carry a story from childhood all the way into adulthood, a story of not being good enough, not being loved, not being seen. They wonder why every time they try to succeed, something inside sabotages them. It's because their story won't allow them to experience something greater. The story says that's not you, but it is you. You're not the story. You're the storyteller. You have the power to pick up the pen and rewrite what comes next. The story you choose becomes the foundation for your identity. And once your identity shifts, Everything else changes automatically because we don't act in accordance with what we want. We can act in accordance with who we believe we are. You can have all the strategies in the world, but if your story says, "I'm not the kind of person who wins," you'll never allow yourself to win. Change your story and you'll change the standards of what you accept, what you chase, and what you believe is possible. Think about it. Every breakthrough begins with a decision to change your narrative. A person who says, "I'll never lose weight," loves differently than someone who says, "I'm becoming stronger every day." Someone who says, "I can't find love," behaves differently than someone who says, "I'm learning how to give and receive love deeply." The words may sound small, but the energy behind them creates worlds. You're literally programming your subconscious with every sentence you repeat. The first step to rewriting your story is awareness. You've got to catch yourself when that old voice shows up. The one that says you can't, you won't, you never will, fight it, recognize it. Because once you recognize it, you're no longer trapped in it. Then you replace it. You start speaking the truth of who you're becoming, not the lie of who you used to be. Instead of "I always fail," it becomes "learning to succeed." Instead of becomes "I'm growing." Small shifts in language lead to massive shifts in identity. And let me be clear, changing your story doesn't mean denying reality. It means refusing to stay defined by your past. It means choosing meaning that empowers you. Maybe you went through pain, but you decide that pain made you wiser. Maybe you were betrayed, but you decide that betrayal taught you strength. Maybe you failed, but you decide that failure was feedback, not finality. That's what separates those who stay broken from those who break through. It's not the event, it's the story they attach to it. You have to decide what every experience means to you. Because meaning equals emotion, and emotion drives action. When your story is one of strength, gratitude, and growth, your emotions align with power, and from that emotional state, actions will naturally follow. That's when life begins to shift, not because the world got easier, but because you got clear about who you are. Every time you rewrite your story, you reclaim a piece of yourself. You stop living as a victim of what happened and start living as the creator of what's next. You start asking different questions. What is this teaching me? Instead of you stop reacting and start creating. That's how transformation truly happens. Not by waiting for the world to change, but by changing the meaning you give to the world. The most powerful moment in your life is when you realize you are not your past. You are not your mistakes. You are not your pain. You are the awareness that observed them, the consciousness that can choose differently. And from that place, you can write a new chapter. One that speaks of resilience, of purpose, of unstoppable growth. Because in the end, story doesn't define you. You define the story. Your emotions are powerful. They are the invisible force that drives every action, every decision, every outcome in your life. Most people live as if their emotions are something that just happens to them. They say things like, "I'm angry because of him," or "she made me feel this way," or "I can't help it. I just feel this way." The truth is can make you feel anything without your permission. You might not control every event that happens, but you always control what meaning you give it, and that meaning creates your emotion. Your emotional state determines your experience of life. You can have everything: success, money, relationships, but if you live in a state of fear or stress, you won't feel fulfilled. On the other hand, you can have challenges, uncertainty, and obstacles. But if you live in a state of gratitude, confidence, and peace, you'll still feel rich. The difference between joy and suffering isn't circumstance. It's state. Most people wait for something external to change before they feel good. They think, once I get that job, I'll feel confident. Once I find love, then I'll be happy. Once I have more money, then I'll finally feel secure. But if you're waiting for life to change before you do, you'll be waiting forever. Emotional mastery means you generate the emotion you want, not because everything is perfect, but because you decide who's in charge. You don't wait to feel good. You choose to feel good. Think about how powerful that is. Moment you decide that your emotions are your responsibility, not someone else's, you take back control of your life. You're no longer a slave to reaction. You're a creator of emotion, and that means you can face anything, stress, failure, rejection without losing your center. But this doesn't happen by chance. It happens through awareness and conditioning. You can't control every emotion that rises up, but you can control how long you stay in it. When anger shows up, you can recognize it instead of becoming it. When fear whispers, you can acknowledge it without obeying it. Emotions are signals, not commands. They're information, not identity. You can feel fear and still act with courage. You can feel doubt and still move forward with faith. The problem is that most people identify with their emotions instead of observing them. They say, I am angry, I am sad, I am anxious. No, you're not anger, you're not sadness. You're not anxiety. You're the awareness that feels those emotions, not the emotion itself. The moment you make that distinction, you begin to break free because once you realize you're not your emotions, you can start to direct them instead of drown in them. Your emotional state is also deeply connected to your physiology. The way you use your body, you can't stand tall, breathe deeply, and move with purpose while feeling hopeless at the same time. It's almost impossible. Try it. Your body language communicates directly with your brain. When you change your body, you change your emotion. That's why when you're angry or sad, you slump your shoulders, lower your head, and breathe shallow. When you take a deep breath, lift your chest, and move with certainty, your brain gets a different message, one of power. That's not theory, it's science. So when you feel yourself sinking into a negative state, interrupt it. Move your body, change your breathing, shift your focus. Ask yourself, what's another meaning I could give this situation? Because emotion is energy and motion. If you change the motion, you change the emotion. Don't let your emotions decide who you are. Decide who you are and let your emotions follow that decision. Emotional mastery doesn't mean you suppress feelings. It means you own them. It means you can experience anger without letting it control your words. You can feel fear without letting it stop your actions. You can feel sadness without losing your strength. It's not about pretending to be happy all the time. It's about choosing which emotions serve you and letting go of the ones that don't. You see, emotional freedom isn't about feeling good all the time. It's about having the power to choose your state no matter what happens. Because when you can control your emotional state, you can control your behavior. And when you can control your behavior, you can control your destiny. That's the real power behind emotional mastery. It gives you the ability to act in alignment with your goals instead of reacting to your environment. Imagine what your life would look like if you could stay calm under pressure, confident in uncertainty, and grateful in chaos. Imagine waking up each day knowing that nothing outside of you has the power to steal your peace. That's what happens when you stop chasing emotions and start generating them. You stop waiting for the world to give you permission to feel joy, and you start giving it to yourself. So when life hits you, and it will, don't ask, is this happening to me? Ask, what state do I need to be in to face this powerfully? Because the state you're in determines the decisions you make, and those decisions create your destiny. When you learn to master your emotions, you become unshakable. Your mind is like a garden, it grows. Whatever you plant in it, every thought, every image, every word you expose yourself to becomes a seed. And those seeds don't just disappear, they take root. They shape how you think, you feel, and ultimately how you live. The truth is, your mind is being fed every single day, whether you realize it or not. The question is, what are you feeding it? Most people are careless with what they let into their mind. They scroll endlessly through social media, consume negativity from the news, gossip about problems, and then wonder why they feel drained, anxious, and unmotivated. It's not because life is falling apart. It's because their input is toxic. You can't fill your mind with poison and expect it to produce peace. You can't fill your mind with fear and expect it to create courage. What you feed your mind, your life will echo. You've got to take ownership of what you allow in, because your mind isn't just reacting to the world, it's being programmed by it. Every story you read, every person you talk to, every environment you step into is shaping your mental and emotional wiring. That's why growth begins with awareness. If you want to live a life of power, clarity, and fulfillment, You must become intentional about what you consume. Think about it like this. Your mind is like a computer, and your beliefs are the software running your life. If you keep installing junk programs, your system slows down, it crashes, it fails to run smoothly. But if you install empowering, uplifting, purpose-driven beliefs, your system operates at a higher level. The difference between people who feel alive and those who feel lost is the quality of information they feed themselves daily. You can't rise if you keep feeding your mind what keeps you small. You can't grow if your attention is consumed by negativity or comparison. What you listen to, what you read, who you spend time with. It all matters. You got to surround yourself with people, voices, and ideas that expand your vision, not shrink it. Because whether you realize it or not, you're always being influenced. You're either being programmed by your environment or you're programming yourself. There's a saying, if you hang around 5 confident people, you'll become the 6th. If you hang around 5 lazy people, become the 6th. If you hang around 5 broke people, you'll become the 6th. That's not judgment, that's the law of influence. Energy is contagious, mindsets are contagious, beliefs are contagious, so you have to ask yourself, who and what am I allowing to feed my mind every day? You have to make feeding your mind a daily ritual. Read something empowering every morning, something that lifts your spirit, something that reminds you of your potential. Listen to voices that make you believe again, that challenge you to grow, that remind you that you're capable of more. Protect your mental diet as fiercely as you protect your body. You wouldn't eat garbage and expect to feel healthy. Don't feed your mind garbage and expect to feel happy. The books you read, the videos you watch, the music you listen to, the conversations you engage in, they all leave fingerprints on your soul, should be intentional. Choose input that makes you stronger. Choose stories that build faith instead of fear. Choose learning that inspires action instead of apathy, because your life will always rise or fall to the level of what you feed your mind. You start feeding your mind quality input. Everything changes. Suddenly you start to think differently. You start to see possibilities instead of problems. You start to believe in your ability to create instead of collapse. That's not a coincidence. That's the law of focus and repetition at work. Your mind begins to reflect what it's repeatedly exposed to. So, if you keep feeding it hope, growth, and gratitude, it will start to produce those emotions automatically. I've seen people completely transformed just by changing their mental diet. They stopped listening to negativity and started listening to growth. They stopped following drama and started following discipline. They stopped surrounding themselves with doubters and started spending time with doers. Within months, their energy changed, their confidence grew, their results skyrocketed, because when your mind is fed the right fuel, it performs at its highest level. This isn't just about motivation, it's about mental conditioning. Every piece of content, every thought, every word is either building your strength or stealing it. So you've got to ask yourself every day, is what I'm feeding my mind helping me or hurting me? Is it expanding my vision or shrinking it? Is it bringing me closer to who I want to become or pulling me away from it? That level of awareness separates the average from the exceptional, because success isn't built on luck. It's built on consistency, and consistency is built on conditioning. You can't expect to live an extraordinary life if your mind is malnourished. You've got to feed it with purpose, with knowledge, with belief, truth. You've got to treat your mind like the most valuable asset you own, because it is. So guard it, feed it, strengthen, because when you feed your mind with power, your life will reflect that power. Nothing changes until you do. You can think positive thoughts all day, visualize success, repeat affirmations, and plan your goals on paper. But if you don't act, nothing happens. The bridge between who you are and who you want to be is built by action. Thought alone doesn't change your life. Consistent, decisive, intentional action does. Too many people wait for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, or the perfect feeling before they start. But the truth is, the perfect moment never comes. You create it through movement. Action is where your power lives. It's where thoughts turn to reality. It's where dreams take form and purpose turns into progress. You can't think your way into confidence. You build it through doing. You can't plan your way into courage. You grow it by facing fear head on. The mind loves to talk you out of what you know you need to do. It'll whisper, "You're not ready. What if it doesn't work? What if you fail?" But here's the truth. You don't get ready and then act. You act, and through action, you become ready. Every breakthrough you've ever had in life came from a moment when you took action despite uncertainty. You didn't know everything. You didn't have all the answers, but you moved anyway, and that movement created momentum. Because once you start, something shifts inside you. You stop being the thinker and you become the creator. You stop wondering, "Can I?" and start proving I can. But most people spend their lives stuck in their heads, overanalyzing, overthinking, waiting for clarity. Clarity doesn't come before action. It comes because of action. When you move, you learn. When you act, you grow. The path reveals itself to the one who's walking, not the one who's standing still. You'll never know what's possible until you take that first step. You can't steer a parked car. You've got to start moving before you can change direction. And yes, you'll make mistakes, you'll fall, you'll stumble. Mistakes aren't the opposite of success. They're the foundation of it. Every great success story is written with chapters of failure, frustration, and doubt. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't that they never fall. It's that they never stop getting up. They learn, they adjust, and they keep moving forward. Action doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be persistent. You have to develop the muscle of doing. Every time you act on an idea, you strengthen that muscle. Every time you hesitate, you weaken it. Action is like a signal to your mind. It tells your brain this matters. And once your mind knows you're serious, it begins to work for you instead of against you. It starts finding solutions, attracting resources, and creating opportunities that weren't visible before. Because when you move with purpose, life starts moving with you. You'll notice something powerful when you start taking action. Your emotional state changes. You can't feel powerless while taking decisive action. You can't feel stuck when you're in motion. Action dissolves fear. It breaks the illusion of limitation. You might begin uncertain, but once you move, energy follows. Fear fades, confidence grows, and momentum takes over. That's why discipline is so important. Discipline isn't punishment. It's self-respect. It's saying, "I trust myself enough to follow through even when I don't feel like it." The truth is, action is the ultimate form of self-belief. Anyone can say they want change. Few are willing to do what it takes. Action separates intention from transformation. You can dream about freedom, talk about growth, or hope for a better life. But nothing changes until you decide to do. And doing doesn't mean massive leaps every day. Sometimes it's small assistant steps, a phone call, a workout, a decision to learn, a refusal to quit. Those small actions compound into massive results over time. People who build extraordinary lives aren't necessarily the smartest or the most talented. They're the ones who move. They're the ones who act when others hesitate. They're the ones who take one more step when everyone else gives up. They don't let fear decide their future. They use fear as fuel, because when you take action in the face of fear, fear loses its power over you. You've got to ask yourself, how long will I keep waiting to start? Waiting for confidence, waiting for clarity, waiting for someone to believe in me. You don't need more time, you need more courage. The moment you take that first step, life begins to meet you halfway. Doors start to open that you never even knew existed. The universe responds to movement, not wishful thinking. You don't have to have it all figured out to begin. You just have to begin, because every step you take sends a message to yourself, to life, to the world that you're ready. Ready to grow, ready to change, ready to claim the life that belongs to you. When you align your thoughts with relentless action, you become unstoppable.